Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Danny. We have just seen Brandon Glanton become the second man to stop Marcus Browne in Lagos, Nigeria tonight. Marcus Browne not coming out for the seventh round. Danny, good to be joined by you. Thank you for your time as always. First question I've got for you. Did Marcus Browne quit in a fight that he was winning?
I'm not sure he was winning the fight. I had it scored maybe either three apiece or 4-2 to Brandon Glanton. I think he quit with respect in a fight he was going to lose. I think he started the fight well. He's a lot more skilled boxer than Brandon Glanton is Marcus Browne. A lot was made in the commentary about his amateur pedigree. Maybe he didn't move as much as I thought he would, which is probably a good tactic if you do have gas tank concerns. He was able to pick Glanton off early. Glanton very one-dimensional, comes forward in straight lines, and Browne was hitting him with clean, hurtful punches to the head and body. I think he must have saw the success Chris Smith had in hitting Brandon Glanton to the body, if you remember that fight. And I don't think that was necessarily a bad approach, but around the fourth and fifth round, things really started to go against him. I think it was the fourth. The commentary sort of had it as like a nip and tuck round that Browne nicked, but I didn't see it that way. The majority of that fight, or the majority of that round, I should say, Browne spent with his back against the ropes with Brandon Glanton wheeling away. Now, not everything Glanton was throwing was landing, far from it, and Browne was picking his own shots, but those flurries that he had so much success with in the opening two rounds were sort of becoming more few and far between, and the sting was going out of his punches. And then, yeah, the last two rounds were very much Brandon Glanton rounds, particularly the final round before the fight was stopped. That was where you started to see Marcus Browne visibly hurt. Did become very scrappy, which I think suited Brandon Glanton. And yeah, I was surprised. I'm sure everyone watching was, to see the fight be stopped in the corner at that stage, because Browne looked like he had a little bit left, but I didn't see any way he was going to change the momentum of that fight from there.
No, it was a bit of a shock when he didn't come out, to be honest. I don't know if there was kind of injury we were unclear about, but yeah, decided the decision was made not to come out for the seventh round. And look, I enjoyed it. Like I don't there wasn't a huge amount of quality there, if that's what you're after, but it was a good fight. It was competitive earlier on, but as you said, kind of the tide started to change. And I just think I can't help but think and come back to we've got Glandon, someone who had two fights last year, had a 12-round fight in April this year against Chris Smith, which was competitive, and a quick turnaround to fight in the beginning of October against Marcus Browne, who hasn't had a fight in 2 years. And I just can't help but think that was the difference, especially in Nigeria as well, somewhere where a lot of people haven't fought before. Everything's different, from kind of the food, the humidity, how late you're fighting. Obviously, the fight didn't start until after midnight, and I just think doing all of those things on top of being out for 2 years. Some people did but back Marcus Browne for this fight, but I know you weren't one of them, and I wasn't one of them. I wasn't one of them either. I want to ask you about Brandon Glanton, Danny. Um, we all know who the best cruiserweight in the world is, Jai Opetaia, and it feels like we've got this second level of cruiserweight, whether it be Gilberto Ramirez, Badu Jack, Crispin Smith, the other world champions, Mikhail Sislak, you could put in there as well. I'm sure fighters that you're aware of could be put in there as well. Would you put Brandon Glanton there as well, or or would you kind of put him in kind of some sort of third tier?
I think you've got to have him as like a at the bottom end of the top 10. That's probably where I would have Brandon Glanton. I think he would probably be fortunate to win a world title. I think things would very much need to go in his favour in terms of belts becoming vacant, in terms of if he was to get called for mandatory who he was to end up fighting. I wouldn't pick him against certainly Jai Opetaia or Ramirez, and I can't see a fight between him and Badu Jack materialising anytime soon. But yeah, he's a good cruiserweight. You need to be a very good cruiserweight to beat him. I think that was a good win for Chris Smith at the time. If you're going to ask me about potentially what's next, he'll think he's, in and around the precipice of a world title shot. I'd like to see him, if someone like Vidal Riley fancies a step up fight. I think that's a real test for
Yeah.
him. I think he asked some good questions of him. Aside from that, there's not too many international fights that do too much for me. The cruiserweight division's a bit thin at the minute. Maybe I'm missing someone, but Vidal Riley, someone like that for me in a year, 2 years time. Pat Brown, that'd be a fun fight, wouldn't it? Obviously, Pat's typically going for very big things, Barry Hearn, so Brandon Clanton would certainly ask a few questions of him as well.
Yeah, and of course, Brendan Glanton, known to the UK public as well, very much so for his antics in the press conference before the Crispin Smith fight. So I think people recognise him. But yeah, cruiserweight's an odd, it's just an odd division, isn't it? Because there's so many fights out there that are tough, but they're not necessarily big fights. Then you kind of just got people who I just feel like have been in that division forever. Mastius Masternak somehow still fighting. Dorticos still
Jordan
fighting.
Cross is be a good fight. Dana
Yeah.
White against Pedro Ramirez, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I mean, the ones you mentioned, Vidal Riley's the fight I would really like to see. I'm not sure what Vidal Riley's doing next. He's in kind of the abyss with Boxer, is what we can maybe say. But I've looking at the rankings, both Vidal Riley and Brandon Glanton ranked in the top 15 with the WBC. So who knows? I think that would be a great fight. Final question from me, Danny. Just kind of thoughts on tonight. It was a bit the whole show. It was a bit different. Obviously, we're not used to seeing televised events in Nigeria, but there was a lot. There's just kind of quite a lot to unpack in terms of rappers in between fights, having quite kind of long breaks in between fights. But just what did you kind of what did you make for? Obviously, it's not going to be the same as kind of a Riyadh season show or a show at the MGM Grand. But what did you make of tonight?
Yeah, it sounds like boxing in Africa is something we could potentially see a bit more of, and bigger events than this, if some reports are to be believed. It was obviously a bit more, what's the right word? A few steps back from shows we would see in the UK, and especially the bigger ones you mentioned. And the entertainment and stuff, like, it's not going to be my cup of tea. I don't enjoy seeing, you could have my favorite band or my favorite artist, but if in the middle of a boxing card, I don't think that translates very well. But it's something that we have to have got used to, and it's something that's probably not going to go away. I guess thinking is it attracts a different audience, a casual sports fan, and just a general member of the public. The one thing I would say in this, if we're going to see, that probably wasn't world championship level boxing, but that was world level boxing tonight. I don't know if the standard of officiating, judging didn't come in tonight is up to it. I thought the referee in that main event was horrendous. From the third or the fourth round on, he called the first significant low blow that Marcus Browne landed. And then from that point on, each fighter was landing at least three or four or five
Mm.
low blows per round, and nothing was being said. And the referee was looking right at that. I don't know if these are the biggest name fighters he's ever refereed, and we didn't want to rub people up the wrong way, but that's not good enough, really. So if there is going to be big boxing in Africa, and there's talk of an Anthony Joshua fight there, I
Yeah.
don't know if there needs to be international officials brought in or upskilling in the officiating there. Or maybe this official just had a bad night, but the referee, and if it's going to be world level boxing, it's got to be world level refereeing and judging, and I don't think we saw that in that main event.
Yeah, and I think that if you're going to have high level boxing, then you need to have a better standard of refereeing. Maybe that was just a bad example that we saw in the main event tonight, but it was poor. I just found on several occasions, I think Spencer Oliver picked up on it as well in the commentary. The guy was just not, the guy was just not in the right position to see what was going
Yeah.
on. He was kind of like had his front to the back of one of the fighters, so he couldn't. Maybe that's why he kept missing the low blows because he couldn't see them. So I agree with you. I think yeah, it was great to see tonight. It's boxing should be a universal sport. We see boxing all the time in the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. There's been a lot of boxing. Obviously in Japan, boxing seems to be buzzing at the moment. So it's nice to see boxing in boxing in Africa. So yeah, a successful evening, but we'll see when the next one is. It was great to see Moses Atalma, Lawrence Coley, David Adley out making the effort to go out there as well. Danny, good to be joined by you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for staying up with me, and I'll speak to you again very soon.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, folks.